Our guest is on the line, and she is Pam Grout. Pam Grout is a world traveler, a loving mother, a best-selling author, a millionaire, and an inspiring witness to everyone she meets. Actually, only 4 of the above are true so far. But that line is an affirmation. I know that's right. I started using 20 years ago before I'd ever had a child, before I became a travel writer or an author, and for that matter, before I even liked myself all that much. Evidently, affirmations work because now I can proudly say all but one of the above are true, and I'm going to put in there again so far. I'll let you guess which one is yet to manifest. I live in Lawrence, Kansas, a fun, funky university town that has lots of artists, liberals, and other like-minded folk. I love anything having to do with creativity. Maybe that's why my second book was about how to be more creative. I play tennis. I love to garden, although I refuse chemical help of all kinds. I write screenplays. Unfortunately, nobody buys them yet. I love to putter. Putter, in case you're unfamiliar with the term, means doing very little. I like just hanging out, talking with friends, reading books with my daughter. For a career, I write articles and books. I have 19 published books so far. At the time of this writing, it was 15, but she just shared with me before we went on the air, 19. And I've sold articles to dozens of publications. The ones I'm probably most proud of are Travel and Leisure, Outside, Family Circle, Modern Maturity, New Age Journals, Scientific American Explorations, Arizona Highways, Travel Holiday, Tennis, Powder, Snow Country, The Washington Post, the Detroit Free Press, First for Women, Amtrak Express, and on and on. I'm a Midwestern stringer for People magazine, working out of the Chicago Bureau. I've written about everything from a dinosaur hunter to a couple of guys who opened a bakery for dogs to a wonderful Boeing lineman who ran into a burning building to save 6 children. I also write a column called, quote, "Now, where was I?" unquote. I've been to all the continents, and I've tried practically all the sports. I've yet to jump out of an airplane, and again, yet. And I don't know, that may have happened since the writing of this bio, but I have to save something for my 90th birthday. I know that's right. Welcome to the Reading Circle microphones, Pam Grout. Pam, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you so much for joining me. Are you calling out of Kansas?
I am calling out of Kansas. Yeah, it's 6 a.m. here, not 7 a.m.
That's correct. That's why I was asking. I have callers calling from all over the world, guests calling from all over the world, and a lot of times my guests are calling out of the West Coast where it's 3 hours behind. So that's like a crazy time. And then every now and again I get somebody in Europe that's 5 or 6 hours ahead of us. So it really works for them. So let's see now. I've been to Kansas City. That's Missouri, I guess.
Right, yeah. Kansas City's divided into 2 parts, and the Missouri's the side that has most of the stuff people know of, like the football team and the baseball team is on the Missouri side, and the barbecue that everybody knows about. But there's also Kansas City, Kansas, and I live in Lawrence, which is about 30, 40 minutes away from Kansas City. I fly out of Kansas City when I travel.
Okay, now interesting bio. Now, has the 4th one manifested yet? The millionaire or whichever one?
It has.
Oh.
In fact, it's funny listening to you read that because I did write that quite a long time ago. So now I can proudly say all 5 of those manifestations are true. Good
for you, and that bolsters our conversation for the morning because that's what caught my eye about the book E Squared. I was reading another book, and an author referenced you in her book. And then I said, well, I got to get this one now after reading the reference. And I started reading your book, and I loved it. And I said, I got to see if I can get her on the show, because that's generally how I get my guests. I'll read their books and be so intrigued by it. I said, I want to talk to them and share them with our listening audience. And so I'm going to work my way up from, as I said on the telephone, from kind of where did the whole writing begin to getting into the affirmations and the manifestations and our thoughts are things and so forth and so on. So let's go on and get going, as they say. Was writing something you always done, or did you manifest your way into that, or where did it come from?
Well, I have always loved to read, and I kind of think that anybody that reads a lot eventually starts thinking, oh, maybe I could do that too. So I was one of these kids, like in 2nd grade, they made a special certificate for me, like in the after-school program, and it was, she read 256 books. Of course, they were picture books, it wasn't like some great accomplishment, but I loved to read. And then I started writing these little books, Patty the Penguin, and I would illustrate them. So I've basically been a writer since second grade. And I feel so lucky because you know how a lot of people are like, oh, wow, what do I want to do with my life? It's a big question that everybody asks. But I've always known that I love to write, so I've always been so fortunate that I've been able to make a living as a writer. So, I've been very blessed and had just a wonderful experiences from being a writer. I've been able to travel all over the world and kind of interview anybody that I want to interview because then I'll write about it. It sounds like a little bit like your job. You read a book you like and then you get to call them up and go, hey, let's talk. So anyway, it's been a really great career, and I just started writing because I love to read.
And see, what I find interesting about that and where we're going to connect it, especially with E Squared, is the fact that at that age you were already thinking about writing or being a writer, and you just carried it all the way up the line, going back to really the impetus of the premise of the book, our thoughts being things. And I always tell people, because I work with children every day, that's whenever I'm not doing radio, I'm an administrator in an elementary school. And that question in terms of like, what are you going to be when you grow up is always asked the kids, of course. And, it's okay if you don't know that answer. But what I find is a lot of the kids who really do and they continue along that vein, they generally wind up being super successful. So I'm not surprised that you've hit based on what the book is about and based on where you started from. I'm not surprised you've gotten to where you are.
Yeah, it's funny because I was watching an interview last night with Jim Carrey. And he was saying that when he was 10 years old, you know how he loves to do all the crazy voices and all that. He said when he was 10 years old, he wrote a letter to Carol Burnett and said, hey, I can do 150 different impressions. Why don't you have me on your show? I want to be on your show with Tim Conway and, whoever else was on Carol Burnett's show. And so it's funny, at 10, he knew that's what he wanted to do. And, of course, now he's gone on to be extremely successful. So, yes, I always say that whatever we put our attention upon, we animate into our life. So if we put our attention upon some career that we want, we're going to animate that into our life. And again, since I love to read, I wanted to be a writer, so I animated that into my life because I believe that the world is really responsive to our thoughts.
Right.
And, if you're thinking about certain things, if you're thinking about doom and gloom, you'll get doom and gloom. If you're thinking about all the positive things, you'll get that in return. So I feel like what we spend our time thinking about is really who we become.
It is so true. And I'm a major league believer of the law of attraction. And I'm also a Christian. And I tell folks the two, they don't negate each other. In fact, they go hand in hand. They go hand in hand. Because if you look biblically in terms of verses, as a man thinketh, so is he. And there's other verses in there about asking and receiving and so forth and so on. And I have experienced the LOA. That's the acronym for law of attraction. I've experienced LOA so many times, so that's why I read so many books on it as well. But you're absolutely right in terms of our thoughts are things, and they do go out into the atmosphere, just like these radio waves are going out as we're talking right now. You're in Kansas, I'm here in New Jersey. Folks can hear us all over the world, but they can't see us.
Exactly. And that's what I say a lot about our frequency, like those thoughts that you're putting out. Like right now, anybody that's dialed into your radio station can hear you. But so if you're dialed into another radio station, they won't be able to hear what's going on. So there's so much going on out there in the universe, and so we're going to dial in whatever we put our attention upon. So literally, like you can't watch ABC if you're tuned into NBC. So, it's the same principle because it really is a frequency. Our thoughts are like radio waves, and that's the perfect analogy. And
interestingly enough, a lot of people, when you have conversations with people, it ranges, of course, from like, that's hooey to I'm totally sold out about it. But it always interesting whenever you're trying to help people understand, really watch your word, because there's this like, our words have power. Really kind of watch your words and your thoughts, because you really do bring things about. And a lot of people will look at me like I have three heads when I kind of engage them in that conversation.
No, it's really true. I say in one of my books that, back in biblical times they had prophets, of course. Well, we don't necessarily look in the yellow pages today and find prophet. Listen,
that's right.
If you want to know what's going to happen in your life, listen to the things that are coming out of your mouth. That is our prophets right now, is the things that we're saying.
No, it's true.
So it really is true, yeah.
Yeah, every time I read book, I try to take something out of it. And there was a few things I took out of your book. One of them, but a lot of times people would ask me, how you doing? And I say, I won't complain. But after reading your book, I said, you know what? I'm going to stop saying that word complain, because the subconscious is not picking up on the words I won't. The subconscious is picking up on the word complain. So even though I'm saying I won't complain, the subconscious is still picking up on complain. Therefore, most likely I'm going to start complaining if I'm not already doing. So when people start asking me, hey, Mark, how you doing? I started saying I'm grateful.
Oh, that's beautiful. Gratitude is so important. To me, that's the whole secret to everything, is gratitude.
Correct. I'm with you there. And that's why I intentionally chose that, okay, my response at this point is going to be, and I still get tripped up because by habit, I'm ready to say I won't complain. And I'll say I'm grateful.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Well, I started a program, and, we were talking about, which of those 5 things hadn't come true. Well, E Squared ended up becoming it was #1 New York Times bestseller. It's been translated into 40 languages. I mean, it really became huge. And, it was about affirmations. So I was always saying something about it. So about the time it came out, so I started this little, what I call my AA 2.0 program. And, you've heard of the 12-step, the AA program. Well, my program's really, really easy. And step number 1, and this goes all back to gratitude, every morning I get up and I say, something amazingly awesome is going to happen to me today. I don't necessarily specify what it's going to be, but I know I wake up going, something really cool is going to happen to me today. That's why I called it AA 2.0, because I said amazingly awesome. And then the second step of my 2-step program is that I have 5 friends. I call them my possibility posse, and every morning I text 3 blessings to them from the day before. And, a lot of people talk about gratitude and how important it is, but the thing that's different about AA 2.0 is you have to come up with something different every day.
Right.
So I feel like I'm out there scouting for blessings and miracles. I mean, that is the thing I'm putting my attention upon. I have to report back to my possibility posse some brand new blessing from today. So you better believe my eyes are tuned into that. My thoughts are tuned into that, because, I've got this possibility posse waiting for me to tell them what happened really cool today. And I can tell you what, Mark, you're going to be on my list for tomorrow.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that more than you know. Yeah. And see, again, whenever I always read with the objective of having takeaways. And there was another area in your book, and because we're going to get down, listening audience, we're talking a lot about E Squared. I'm going to allow Pam to talk about some of her other books, but the main focus is on E Squared. And the book is set up in experiments. And there was one experiment you had, kind of similar to what you were just talking about with the texting, but you were talking about actually think blessings for somebody else without letting them know. I think you give the example of the young lady, the lady that was having trouble with her mother, or had a difficult relationship with her mother, and she kept on blessing her mother, and then eventually the relationship got great.
Right. She says now they're the best of friends. Yeah, it's so fascinating how it happens. In fact, one of the really cool things that has happened for me writing this book is that now every single day I open my email and I get these emails from people literally all over the world, and they usually start with some version of, you are never going to believe this. So people have had all these amazing manifestations, and I'm so lucky because I get to hear about them.
Right.
Send them to me. So any doubt, you're talking about some people are doubters. Well, any doubt I might have had, it is completely erased now, because I have gotten hundreds of thousands of emails with people telling me their amazing stories. And in fact, I did a follow-up book to E Squared called E Cubed, and in there I list some of the stories, that people sent into me, and it's really miraculous. And then on the theme of gratitude, I then went on to write a book called Thank and Grow Rich, because it's not about rich in financial terms.
Right.
It's about other kinds of capital, like spiritual capital, adventure capital, creative capital, those kind of things, which do eventually lead to financial capital. But the really true important things in life are these other things, like adventure capital and alchemic capital, knowing that the words we say do make a difference in the world.
It really does. And the reason I brought up that particular example, because my oldest daughter and I were somewhat estranged. The relationship is not where I want it to be. So I started doing exactly what you said. I started just every morning throughout the day, just sending blessings out mentally, or what have you. And sure enough, we had probably one of the longest conversations we had in a long time last Friday night. And I had just started doing it maybe a week and a half, almost maybe nearly 2 weeks up to that point. And I was sitting there like blown away. I really was, because I said,
beautiful story.
I did, kind of sort of similar example to what you have in the book, except it's father-daughter instead of mother-daughter. And it was the father doing it instead of the child doing it. But we had one of the longest conversations we had in a long time. And it wasn't like hours, but it was longer in relative to what we had been doing. And I said, well, I'm going to keep blessing her. I'm going to keep sending out the blessings, because I'm looking forward to our relationship getting better again as it used to be also. But my point is, it works.
It most definitely works. Well, that's why I think this book really struck a chord, because as you pointed out, this message that has been out there for a long time, what you think about, you become, and it's in the Bible. I mean, it's been around forever. But what I did in the book, and this is why I think people like it so much, I set it up with actual science experiments. I put in lab report sheets, and so people literally give it a try, and so they see the results with their own two eyes. Because once you start seeing, just like you said that about your daughter and you having that great conversation, you realize, wow, there's something to this. So you can hear about all the theories, until the cows come home, but until you demonstrate it in your own life, and that's what happens when you start looking for it. And so I set up these really simple little 48-hour experiments, and like I said, people are blown away, like, wow, this really does work, because people are actually looking for the results. Because I think what happens a lot, we make an intention or whatever,
right?
And we don't really expect it's going to happen, or we're focusing more on the fact that it's not here, and we're not really seeing it as coming to fruition. So if you give up that doubt for just a short period of time, that's all I ask of people. Just give up the doubt. Just give it a try. You don't have to take my word for it. Just give it a try. And then the results are so remarkable that people, are like so excited, like, wow, this really does work. So it's like starting with the baby steps, and then, really the sky's the limit. I mean, you can manifest anything. We're connected to everything, but again, we're only going to get the part that comes in on the frequency that we're focused on.
Correct. And I'm looking here, and even in your introduction, something as small as a potato masher.
Exactly. Yeah, that was a pretty funny story.
He says, a few years ago, I wanted a potato masher. I didn't mention it to anyone. I just made a mental note. Next time you're at Walmart, buy a potato masher. That very night, my friend Wendy, who was cleaning out her drawers, stopped by with a couple of no longer needed cooking utensils, including a potato masher.
Yeah, it's amazing, the things that happen. Oh, yeah, the stories that I've gotten from people have been so much fun. Like, in fact, some people will write in and say, how do I get the clowns to stop? I mean, that's just one story. This guy decided he was going to manifest seeing clowns, because one of the experiments I called the Volkswagen jet experiment.
Right.
Is that once you start thinking about something, you start noticing it where you didn't even know it existed before. So this one guy decided in his experiment he was going to look for clowns. He says now, every time he gets in the car, the song Clowns by Mill Sandy comes on. He even said he's on the airplane and he'll open up and he'll see clowns. He says they're everywhere. How do I turn it off? It's kind of like The Sorcerer's Apprentice, that Disney and what was that?
That's right.
Asia. It's like they just keep coming and coming and coming.
So, listeners, if you're wondering what she's talking about, we're focusing on E Squared, even though Pam has written many other books. Matter of fact, I want to hear. I've heard a couple of the Think and Grow Rich you just referred to. I want to hear the listing of the rest of them. But E Squared is broken up, as she says, into experiments. Now, each of these experiments have interesting names. You just mentioned one of them, the Volkswagen Jetta principle. But you have the Dude Abides, the Albie Einstein, the Abracadabra, the Dear Abby, the Superhero, the Jenny Craig, the 101 Dalmatians, the Fish, and the Loaves. So how'd you come up with the names for each?
Well, I also have a theory, with each one, or hypotheses with each one of those experiments, but I made them kind of fun. I mean,
right.
You notice in my writing, I like to kind of make things fun, because I think, if it's fun, it's more sustainable. Like any of these things we want to do, like setting intentions, we want to make it fun, and I feel like that's the secret to manifestation. If we look at it as a chore, or if we look at it as something we have to do, then it becomes a chore or something we have to do. But if we approach it with a light heart and, let's just have fun with this, then really that's when the miracles start happening. So even in my writing, I mean, I just think it's more fun to write fun titles. So I came up with, just kind of funny titles, and that's why I called them those experiments. But each one has a hypothesis that is very serious. I mean, not serious as in a heart attack, but
right.
Serious as in it really does work. But let's make it fun. Let's play around with these principles rather than work on these principles. In fact, I go around the country and I give workshops only I don't call them workshops. I call them play shops. Because
right.
I think it's really important to approach it, in a fun manner and make it fun. So that's my big theory about these principles.
Well, I could not agree with you more. And the thing I get a kick out of about him is you kind of put a deadline and say, all right, I want to see if this happens within, as you said, 48 hours.
Sometimes people will get, they'll write to me and go, oh, it didn't happen. Here's a really funny one, within 48 hours. But that's just a way to kind of jar you into paying attention. But anyway, so this one guy decided he was going to manifest a red ball. And he said, oh, it didn't work, with my 48 hours. But a week later, he said he was driving to work, and out in this intersection bounced this little red rubber ball. He said he has no idea where this ball came from, but it just bounced out into the intersection. And then he got out of his car and he picked it up, and he sent me a picture of his red ball holding his little red rubber ball, and he wrote like miracle on it or something like that. So the 48 hours is, again, like I said, a way for us to be paying attention. Because a lot of times, I believe miracles are happening constantly.
Correct.
But we're not really noticing them. So this is just a way of saying, hey, I'm going to be looking for 48 hours. So it really is just, getting us to pay attention to what's happening out there in the world.
Well, I'm sitting here because I have the book on Kindle, so I was able to highlight, and I'm sitting here reading through all my highlights. And one of them says, if you want Jimmy Choo pumps, think of Jimmy Choo pumps. Do not think about how peace looks impossible or that love seems fleeting or that there's no money in your bank account for Jimmy Choo pumps. Keep your mind focused only on what you want. And anytime that puppy starts heading toward those slippers, pick it up and take it back outside.
Yeah, I call it it's kind of like housebreaking a puppy because our thoughts, we're into these normal thoughts. Just like you said you were going to quit saying, I have no complaint, so your mind's used to saying that, or that's kind of our neural pathways get it set up to we get into these habits and these ruts. So I compare changing our thoughts to housebreaking a puppy, and that's why at the end it said that, because we just keep taking that puppy outside saying, hey, look, there's this beautiful world out here, and you don't need to pee on my ratty slippers here in the house. So you just keep taking it back outside, and that's how we do with our mind training. We just keep retraining our mind. When we notice ourselves having the negative thoughts or focusing on the things we don't want or focusing on problems. I always talk about, like problem state or possibility state. You can live in problem state where you're always thinking about these problems you have to solve, or you're focused on all the possibilities, because everything that's happening is one of a million, bazillion, infinite superpositions in the quantum field. There's so many different possibilities, but we get zeroed in on one. So it's so important to get off a problem state and get back into possibility state. And that's where I call it like housebreaking the puppy. You just keep showing it this different reality. Keep showing your mind a different reality. And as you start looking for that different reality, the possibility reality, then that kind of stuff starts happening in spades. It's just amazing. It just starts happening over and over.
And again, I'm reading from the book. Just notice in the next couple of days how often you affirm that it's, quote, hard, unquote, or, quote, challenging, unquote. Pay attention to how often you say, things have always been like that, or it runs in my family. We spend so much time talking about what doesn't work that we miss the whole point, namely that we have the power to create something that does. Now, see, again, for me, I guess because I've been practicing this over some time now and I've seen it work, to a degree, it seems like sounds simple, but it's not.
Right. Well, this is what I'm a student of A Course in Miracles, and It says in there that this is not difficult. It's just very different than the way we're used to being. So, no, it is really simple, but it is training our mind to think about different things, because we're in fact, I've got a great story in E-Cubed, and I'll tell you this story. There was a 5-year-old, and you may have heard the story, but it's one of my favorite stories. So this 5-year-old, his parents bring home a new baby, and he is just insistent that he wants some alone time with that baby sister. And his parents, they've read the books on sibling rivalry, and they're thinking, now why does he want alone time with his baby sister? They can't understand this. And so he just won't give this up. So finally one day, they say, okay, you can go in and talk to your baby sister alone. So they stand outside the nursery, and the little 5-year-old tiptoes into the bassinet, looks in and says, tell me about God. I'm starting to forget. And that, to me, is such an amazing story, because we are born, I think, being connected to this, all the possibilities, to God, to all these beautiful things in the world. world. But little by little, our culture, our families, they teach us, that this is the way the world is. It's a problematic world, and you need to do this, and you need to do that, and if you don't do this, you're going to get in trouble. And so we start, picking up all these other messages. And so I always think we need to get back to how we were as children.
I agree.
There were so many possibilities. And in fact, another thing I talk about in my workshops, I said they're play shops. I also call it reverse finishing school. Because, we all learn how to, which fork to use and, all those manners and rules and such. But actually, what we know coming in is that we're connected to this beautiful, miraculous world. And if we could just stay with that, we wouldn't even be reading books like this because we wouldn't need to.
No, you're absolutely right. I just celebrated my birthday last week, and I turned 56, and I'm not ashamed to say age, this, that, and the other, because I'm grateful and thankful to be here that long. But you always get that question, well, how does it feel to be 56? And my knee-jerk response is the same as it felt when I was 55. But the other piece of it, what my response was inside, I don't feel any different than I felt as a child. The inner me, the inside of me, that part is absolutely no different than, because the same interests I had as a kid, playing with trucks and planes and bike riding and all that kind of stuff, I still do it in one form or another now. I do flying the planes and driving the trucks on the computer on simulator, and I'm constantly out bike riding and so forth. So a lot of the things that I did as a kid, I still do now as an adult, and inside of me feels the same. Now, because of that, thankfully, and I'm grateful that the physical part of me really hasn't waned to a degree where I can't do the things. Because I know some people, they have physical ailments or sicknesses or what have you. That's not my issue, and I'm not looking forward for it to be my issue. But the inside of me still feels the same. And to your point, I think that part of us is what's connected to the universe.
Exactly. Because who we really are, not these bodies.
Right.
The spirit within us, that's who we really are. So this is just like temporary packaging that we're in this, But who we really are all those thoughts and creativity and all the ideas. That is who we really are, spirit, so to speak.
No, you're right. And that's the connectivity part. That's the part that goes, that's where the thoughts are going out, like we were talking earlier about these frequencies. And what we really don't realize is that we can tune into each other and not even realize that is happening.
Exactly. In fact, we do that all the time. We're tuning into people. We're hearing other people's thoughts. Like that, we're hearing the thoughts of our culture and thinking this is the way it's got to be. So, that's so true. We're all really connected. Every last one of us is connected. In fact, I always say the biggest secret in the world is we all really love each other.
Right.
But it's a big secret because we've forgotten it.
That's absolutely right. It's the appearance that they don't, but deep down we really do. I think you referenced it in your book. If not, I know it's been in other books about the whole thing. I'm almost sure it's in yours too, about the bumblebee flapping the wings, how it impacts.
Yeah, it is, yeah.
On something. Yeah, go ahead.
It makes a big difference. The hummingbird or whatever it is, flapping their wings in Brazil actually can affect, somebody here in the United States or whatever. So, we're all interconnected, and so everything we do is, a radio wave going out and affecting the entire world. So by us being happier, more joyful, focusing on possibility, we literally uplift everybody else on the planet. So I feel like it's really important work, to uplift ourselves, and because consequently it uplifts everybody else.
No, it really does. And like I said, I am a follower, believer, experiencer of law of attraction. So I am and a lot of times people think it's being Pollyannish or looking through rose-colored glasses, or all you do is see the glasses half full and stuff. I give me all kinds of like, yeah, right, Mark. Yeah. But so usually a lot of times when I'm working with my students in terms of trying to explain the concept to them, in my office, I have a file cabinet that has a whole bunch of, everywhere I travel, I get a magnet. So I have magnets all over my refrigerator, magnets all over my file cabinets. And so what I'll do is I'll say, okay, look, I need you to pretend like you're the file cabinet, like the file cabinet is you. And I take the magnet off of the file cabinet and I say, okay, you see this magnet? Like you understand the concept of magnet and steel, right? Yes. Okay, good. So then we get into this whole thing. Now I'm going to put this magnet out here away from the file cabinet. Now that's you. And I want to, pretend like you're thinking of something. And what I start doing is moving the magnet closer and closer to the file cabinet till it sticks. And I try to help them see that that's exactly what our thoughts are doing. Whatever you're thinking about or thinking on, you're drawing to you. And eventually it's going to stick to you, just like that magnet did that file cabinet.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a good analogy. That's great. Again, it's like using something visual so people can see it with their own two eyes. So that's a fabulous thing to do. Good for you for working with the kids. That's really important.
Because I need them, and the teachers as well, I need all of us to have a mindset of this can be done. Like a lot of times, and I teach in an urban setting, in an urban school, and a lot of times we get caught in this trap of it can't be done. Those kids don't want to learn. They don't want anything. Oh, I have to pity them instead of pushing them. And I'm trying to change that mindset. No. We have to start. Yes, they can. And yes, we can teach them. And yes, they can learn. Really trying again with because what we keep saying, back to the power of words, every time we come in the morning saying, oh, they're not going to get it. Guess what? They're not going to get it.
Exactly.
And back to the having fun. See, I'm a big proponent of it because I love to laugh. People can identify me from afar by my walk, because I walk on my toes and I usually bounce. And they can hear my laugh, and they know. They say, "We knew that was you." we could hear your laughter. Like, okay, so I'm a big proponent of laughter and fun as well, and I think that is critical, especially with the gratitude. I think all of that works together to get what you get, and you'll get a lot of people who are negative that will get almost angry at the good things that keep happening for those who are positive.
Oh yeah, in fact, part of the reason I wrote Thank and Grow Rich is because like I said, I get all these letters from people saying, oh, this is so amazing, I can't believe this. But I also occasionally will get a letter from a naysayer and says, this stuff doesn't work, blah, 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 blah. And so I wrote Thank and Grow Rich for those people, because once we get on this frequency of life does work for me, life is always working out for me, then life will always start working out. So I wrote the book about, gratitude, and in there I have I call them party games. There's like 50 party games for things to start thinking about things they're grateful for. Like, think about things you're grateful for in your past. Think about, and it's just all this idea about putting your frame of reference more on the things you're grateful for. And people go, oh, abundance, there's not abundance in the world. Well, go out and look at a square foot of grass. Try counting how many blades of grass are in that square foot of grass. That is abundance. Or look at how many leaves are on a tree. I mean, it really is unbelievable. But we're more focused on, oh, it's not here, there's not enough. And as long as you start thinking there's not enough to go around, well, that's the reality. See, I believe we can completely rewrite our world.
Right.
That there is more than enough for everyone. And I want everyone to recognize that and use that. And it's only fear that causes some people to hoard things, because we do have enough for everybody. But because people live in fear, some people are hoarding things. But we have to let go of the fear, and it's a system that we've set up. But see, the big point is we can rewrite the system, but we do have to hold that vision for ourselves, and we do have to believe it's possible, because anything we don't think is possible is going to be out of our purview. So we really have to wrap our minds around the fact that we can imagine any kind of world.
Correct. And see, I'm with you. And that's one of the reasons I invited you on the show, because I love this topic and I want more people to learn about it and hear about it. So again, at the end of the interview, I give the author the opportunity to promote. But folks, I really, I was at, and this was a sad occasion, actually. A friend of mine lost his mom, and I knew her very well also. And I was there, talking with him and his father, and I started talking about your book, about E Squared, about the whole thing about blessing other people, especially those that you're having, trouble in the relationship or whatever. He downloaded the book immediately.
Oh, cool.
He downloaded it right there on the spot as we were talking about it. And, but my point is, this is kind of like the type of word that we need to get out. Because like you said, I tend to agree. I laugh whenever you just said a couple of minutes ago, we do love each other. But we need to uncover that so everybody will begin to really understand how this thing works. You're getting what you're getting based on what you're subconsciously and consciously telling yourself.
Right. Well, I have a lot of examples in there about, our neural pathways set up these pathways in our brain. And so at that point, we're no longer able to see anything else. In quantum physics, they call it collapsing the wave.
Right.
So, you collapse the wave, and then you just see a hologram of those things you believe are true. So the idea is to get back again into possibility state where anything could be possible, and we can collapse the wave in a whole different way. And that's kind of, maybe out there, quantum physics and that kind of thing. But we're proving, all these things that have been written about since, time and infinitum, they're being proven now by science, with quantum physics and different things like that. But again, these neural pathways get set up in our brain, and then we no longer see anything else. So it's really important for us to open up and realize that there are other possibilities out there. And again, that's why I don't even necessarily always ask for specific things. I just say, hey, something amazingly awesome is going to happen to me today. And I feel like, whatever I come up with is probably small potatoes compared to what the universe, what God wants to bless me with, because there are so many possibilities out there, and I feel like letting God make the decisions, letting the universe make the decisions is the best way to go, because it only wants my happiness, it only wants joy, and that right there is a radical concept.
Right.
A lot of people think, you've got to suffer to get somewhere, and
right.
you have to work really hard. But no, the universe is always out there wanting to bless us, wanting to guide us, wanting to send us signs. I mean, this is what what the universe wants, what God wants, but we're blocking it because we don't think that's possible, or that we don't think that's the way it is.
And see, it really is about a mindset, because even when I go back to reading your bio that is somewhat outdated, I love the way you went into, let me see. I can proudly say all but one of the above are true. I'll let you guess which one is yet to manifest. So the fact that you worded that, you already knew it's going to happen. It just didn't happen yet. It just didn't happen right now, but it's going to happen. And the wording throughout the whole thing was like that. But see, again, that's back to intentionality. That's back to intentionally, that it's a mindset. You can't get frustrated because it doesn't happen in that minute.
Exactly. In fact, usually at that point, you're more focused on it not happening than it happening. And that's the thing. People go, but I am focusing on it. No, you're actually focused on it. It's not here. If you start, counting your blessings. In fact, I always say thank you for it before it even happens.
Right.
Like blessing your daughter, you're blessing, what you want to be. And so you're literally calling it forth. Gratitude calls things forth. Like if somebody says, hey, would you like a piece of pie? You go, yes, thank you. So it's like you don't have that pie yet, but you say, yes, thank you. So if you start getting on that thank you frequency, and yes, thank you, then the universe is free to deliver all these wonderful things your way.
Again, listening audience, this stuff is not hooey. It's not. It's a law. That's why it's called law of attraction. It's just like gravity. It's just like any of the other laws that we have. Like, you're not going to throw something up and eventually it doesn't come down somewhere. Now, it may stay up for a while, but eventually it's going to come down because it's a law. Well, law of attraction is the same thing. The way you think and what you think about will determine what comes about in your life. And if more of us could understand that, we really would begin to watch our words. Because again, people are, you're just being picky. No, I'm not being, no, I'm telling you now, I'm not going to, like, okay, one of the most common ones, and I cut this out some years ago, is you make me sick. I don't say that.
Yeah, that's good one. That's a good one to yeah, I mean, even, you were talking earlier about the word hard. I always say that's the most dangerous four-letter word in the English language, is that this is hard. Because as long as we believe it's hard to change our thoughts, or it's hard to, manifest, or it's hard to lose weight, or whatever it is, we're wanting to do, if we believe it's hard, well, then guess what? It's going to continue to be hard. So I always like the word smooth and easy, that, life can work smoothly and easily. And it can. It really can, if we can let go of the thoughts that everything is hard. So eliminate the word hard from our vocabulary if we can, that it's really hard, even challenging. I mean, even those of us who know about the power of our thoughts, I find myself saying that. In fact, one of the things, I've got these groups I get together with. Again, I have the Possibility Posse with my gratitudes, but I also get together in person, and we'll call each other out. Or if somebody will say something, we'll say, well, up until now. I mean, that might be true up until now.
Right.
It doesn't have to be true in the next minute. You know, up until now, that may have been your reality, but this next moment is a whole new opportunity for a whole new reality. And every day we get that opportunity.
Now, I'm looking here on your website in terms of the other books, and I'm seeing Living Big, Embrace Your Passion, and Leap into an Extraordinary Life. What's that one about?
That one's a really fun book, and I actually interviewed a lot of people who I consider to be living big. You know, they're doing extraordinary things. Like, there's things like loving big, creating big. Let's see, what were some of the other categories? But anyway, there's 7 different categories about doing big things. And so anyway, then I interviewed different people that are doing remarkable things out there. And so it just talks about the importance, again, of our thoughts. It's sort of the same idea that, you know, we're going to grow to the level of the thoughts that we allow into our life. So living big is about being bigger, you know, having a bigger life and allowing that to happen for yourself, allowing yourself to be all that you're meant to be.
So we were talking about doubt earlier in terms, and this is, again, people don't realize that the smallest thought or wording shows or creates the doubt. So let's say, for example, you're saying, I want to be this, or I see that, or I want that, I'm going to get that, or this is going to happen for me. And then you turn around at the same time and follow it up, but that'll never happen for me.
Exactly.
You've killed it.
Exactly.
So I'm looking at Jumpstart Your Metabolism, how to lose weight by changing the way you breathe. And in one of the experiments, my wife and I laughed and talked about that one because we were talking about where you said the word diet.
Yeah, who wants to do anything with the word diet?
Right. So I see here, this one is about losing weight with the breathing.
Right, because, see, most people don't take in as much oxygen as they can. You know, our lungs are sort of shaped a little bit like a pyramid, or the biggest part of our lungs is down at the bottom part, but most people breathe up into their chests. And so what happens, like I always say, if, you know, we get about a third of the oxygen we're capable of taking in. Well, think about if you got a third of the sleep you needed or a third of the food you needed. I mean, you know, and here we are getting a third of the oxygen that we need. Most people don't breathe deeply. And just by the simple act of breathing deeply, you know, and really focusing on taking in more breath, again, breath, spirit, they're kind of the same thing. It's like taking in more of the possibility. So anyway, that was one of my first books that I wrote that I actually sold to a big publisher, was Jumpstart Your Metabolism, because I had self-published it, and then I was on a talk show in New York, and the publicist for this other author that was on said, hey, would you be interested in selling this book? And so I then contacted an agent, and she ended up, you know, doing a bidding war and sold it to Simon & Schuster. So yeah, I mean, again, I wasn't planning things that way, but that's how it ended up happening for me. Again, I was open to that possibility.
And that was my next question I was getting ready to ask in terms of being on talk shows and on television and all the things that I read, all the different big magazines. I mean, it's kind of like, was that something that you had already said, okay, this is going to happen for me? Or like you said, I was open to the universe, I was open to it, and they just started happening?
Well, I always believe in following what you love, you know, following your beats, so to speak. So I love to write. Like I said, I've been liking to write since I was young. Since the moment I picked up my first book, I wanted to write. So I was always following that thing that I loved. And then this was kind of a natural progression. But here's kind of a fun story about an affirmation. Okay, so E Squared came out in January of 2013. Well, on New Year's Eve of 2012, going into 2013, I was out visiting my sister in Savannah, Georgia, and she lives near Tybee Island, and they were having fireworks out there. So I went out there on New Year's Eve, and I took a big stick, and I wrote in the beach on Tybee Island, I said, E Squared will be an international bestseller. And then, you know, I wrote that into the sand in these big letters, and then I let the ocean come in and take it out into the world. And sure enough, that affirmation that I didn't know how that was going to happen. In fact, I joked in EQ. I said, well, taking out a billboard might have been more productive. But no, I wrote it on the sand and let the universe just take it. You know, how's this going to happen? I don't know, but I let the waves take it out into the universe. And sure enough, that book has been translated into 40 languages. I have been to Japan to speak about my book. I've been to Finland, I've been to Peru, I've been to Australia. I mean, I've been all over the world talking about my book. And again, this isn't any of my plan. This is just, you know, this is what the universe rewarded me with when I began really listening to what I loved and doing what I felt was the right thing to do. Just listen. I mean, following what you love, following your joy, following your bliss who was that guy that said follow your bliss? That anthropologist.
Was it Joseph Campbell?
That guy, yes, Joseph Campbell. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, see, and I'm looking here at the list because I'm seeing, as you're talking about travel, one of your books is The 100 Best Volunteer Vacations to Enrich Your Life.
Yeah, I did 3 books for National Geographic. In fact, I tell a story kind of funny in E Cubed. Well, E Squared, became this huge bestseller, right? Well, I had written that book 10 years earlier, and it actually was published under the title, God Doesn't Have Bad Hair Days. Because I was, in each word I talked about it more in terms of energy, but, in the first version of the book, it's basically the same thing with experiments, but I talked about it in terms of God. Well, for whatever reason, it didn't do very well. It went out of print, but I still loved it.
Right.
But anyway, so instead of going, it didn't take off, I'm really sad, I got busy and I wrote these 3 books for National Geographic. I didn't mope around because my book didn't do what I wanted it to do. I just, kept believing, kept being positive. I went on and wrote these 3 books for National Geographic. And then, 10 years later, not quite 10 years, but almost 10 years later, I repackaged it. I mean, I called it E Squared, again, energy squared, to take off on Einstein's equals MC squared. And I sent it off to Hay House, and then it did become this huge bestseller that, I always envisioned that it would be. But it took a little bit of time. And again, I feel like the main thing that happened is I upgraded my frequency. I upgraded the beliefs that I would let into my life. I started doing that AA 2.0 program. I started proclaiming that good things were going to happen to me. I started being grateful. And that simple act, that's pretty simple, but that simple act enabled the universe to bless me with, a bestseller and all those things that I always thought that I, was wanting to manifest.
That is outstanding because for me, every time when I hear stories like that, because I say, well, if it can happen for Pam, it can happen for me.
Right, I always call it the 4-minute mile thing. Once you realize that somebody can do it, that means all of us can do it. Everybody can do it. And we're meant to be doing it. All of us are meant to be doing it. So
now, vision boarding, or do you do that? Are you into that? Are you familiar with that at all? I know you got to be.
I am familiar with it, and I have done it. I don't do it as much. Like I said, I have so much faith that I am loved by the universe and the universe wants to bless me that anymore I don't even get so much into the specifics. But I certainly have done vision boards, and I love vision boards, and they're a lot of fun to do. But again, at this point in my life, I'm mostly just like, hey, bring it on, universe. What would you like me to do? How can I uplift people? I always say my goal is to change the dominant paradigm because the dominant paradigm suggests that life is hard or life is die, that kind of a thing. But no, life can be beautiful, and I believe we live forever as our spirits. That's what I really believe, and we live on into eternity with our, our ideas and our families and our, the things that we're putting out into the world. So that's what I believe.
Well, that's 2 of us. And there's at least 2. I'm quite sure there are others, but there's at least 2. And I'm going down the list of the books. All of them, they're like you said, they're all about your parents. I see the Girlfriend Getaway Guide.
Yeah, that's a travel one, and that's a fun one. In fact, in that book, I say fire your therapist and go on a girlfriend with your girlfriends because you talk about all the things you need to talk about anyway. So
that's absolutely right. Yeah. So again, we're talking affirmations. Is there any? Okay, this for me, I know the answer to, but I'm going to ask just again for conversation and for our listeners who may not know. Is there any wrong or right way to do affirmations?
I believe there's not a wrong or right way to do it, but I do have a couple little tips. I talk about the crock-pot principle, like set it and forget it.
Right.
Because, I think what happens is we make an affirmation, and then we sit around and obsess about why it's not here. So, again, if you say, look, this is what I want, then, and you let the universe handle the details. Like, for example, I wanted to travel. I knew I wanted to travel, but I had no money when I first decided I wanted to travel. My dad used to load us up in the station wagon. We'd drive all over the country, and that's when I realized I loved to travel. But I knew that was something I wanted in my life. Well, I didn't know how to, how was I going to get the money to travel? This is when I first started traveling. Well, what happened is the universe introduced me to travel writing. And so now I get to travel all over the world for free. Now, if I'd have tried to figure out, I would have done the normal path, which is, slave away at a job and then save up your money and then you retire and then you go travel. But no, I was able to start traveling when I was young because I became a travel writer. And I didn't even know there was such a field as travel writing, exactly. I didn't even realize that, but then I was just kind of fell into that. So for me, the best thing with affirmations is decide what you want. And then as Edwene Gaines says, I talk about this in E Squared, how is none of my business.
Right.
The what is my business. What do I want? What do I, how do I want to feel? And that's another good point. I want to feel happy. I want to feel joyful. And then how that happens, again, I'll let the universe, come up with that. And I believe the universe is there at all times wanting to bless us. Like I said, I believe it's just waiting there to bless us, to guide us, to lead us on all these great adventures. But we have to get in that space where we can recognize the universe, where we can recognize the gifts, and that's where gratitude comes in.
Absolutely. I was sitting here thinking as I heard you say that, my pastor tells this story about whenever we pass away and go to wherever we go, whether it be heaven or the big, great by and by, whatever, that you get there and you say you're grateful that you got there, and then God or universe, whatever, says, well, you know what? I know you had this, but this is what you could have had.
Oh,
and now you look at that and you're like, what? Yeah, that's what you could have. And this is going back to what you were just saying. Like, God, the universe wants to bless us. We got to be prepared for it and in the mindset of being able to receive it. So that's the point of that little story. Like, you weren't in receptivity mode because this is what you could have had.
Exactly. I mean, that book, that 10 years later became a bestseller, that book had been there for 10 years because basically it was the same book, but I had to get in receptivity mode. That's exactly right. I had to become more and more grateful and to realize that as a possibility and to quit, thinking, poor me, poor me.
Right.
So, yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. Because the woe is me, the poor me, they're like, when those folks come around, I say, now look, we're going to have to change this conversation. We're going to have to get out of this pity party. And that's not saying, see, again, people, we're not saying that everything's going to always be wonderful. Don't mistake that. We're not naive. We're not because as life is life. But at the same time, it's how you react to it and respond to it. I mean, there's a difference. I talked about that last week. There's a difference between responding and reacting.
Exactly. And who's to say what is fun and what isn't? Like people go, oh, I've got to go vacuum my floor. Well, vacuuming your floor can be a dance party. I mean, you know what I mean? It's like we get to decide how we approach things and how we see things. And we can see things as a chore and this is, I have to do it. Or we can infuse life and joy into whatever we get to do. In fact, don't even use the word I have to do it. I get to do this.
Right.
The honor of doing this, of serving other people or whatever it is, serving my family by making this meal or whatever it might be. We get to do these things. We get to have this life. We get to have these breaths every day, and we have this day to, it's a wonderful gift to us, and we get that opportunity. So, again, that's a whole different mindset than that, another day, that bad thing's going to happen today,
No, and that was another thing I picked up in the book, exactly what you just talked about, that I get to do this. Because when you look at it that way, there are people that would love to trade places with you. Mm-hmm. Like, no matter how bad you think you have it, there's someone that would, what? You get to do that?
Yeah, for sure.
And so that was another, as I read through the book, and that leaped out at me as well. I'm glad you brought that up because it's about framing. It's about the paradigm. It's about mindset. It really is. So I tell you, Pam, I am so grateful that you joined me this morning because, like I said, I love the book. Like I said, the experiment with the blessing others that you may be having an interesting relationship with, and they don't even know it.
Yeah, exactly.
That one I went in head first with. And some of the other ones I'm going to try as well. But the book is outstanding. It is E Squared. And the author is Pam Grout. That's who we're talking with this morning. Just as you hear it is just how it's spelled. Pam, P-A-M, Grout, G-R-O-U-T. Exactly. Very simple. When you Google her, or if you want to look her up, the books are there. They're on Amazon. They're on other major retailers. But I highly recommend, and you know what? I think the next one I'm going to get from you is The Living Big. I get it's the same principle, but I still like reading about how things happen for other people. Because, again, if it can happen for them, it can happen for me.
Yeah. And it's funny because Living Big is one I wrote before E Squared, but then once E Squared took off and became a #1 New York Times bestseller, then all my other books started selling like crazy too. So, it's just waiting for that moment for you to get into that receptivity mode, like you said, and then all the blessings will come streaming in.
It really is. I mean, we have to be in position to receive our blessings, and most of that positioning is mindset. Like you just said, I get to do this. Not like I have to do this. Oh my God, I got to do this. Not again. Oh, like, wow, like I said, whenever you start kind of thinking in terms of folks who don't get to do it for whatever reason, and how much, if they had the opportunity, they would love to. That reframes it for you. You get to go to work. There are people who don't have jobs. You get to eat. There are people who don't have food. You get to whatever. You fill in the blank. There are folks who, for whatever reason, either they're not in their receptivity place or circumstances or whatever, but there are folks who don't get to. So I tell you, we're down to the last few minutes of the interview, and what I do here is I give you the opportunity to promote how folks can get in touch with you, your websites, book signings, any events going on. You can say everything with the exception of a dollar amount, because once folks get in touch with you, they can figure that out there in terms of the book pricing and all that kind of stuff. If they go to where it's sold, they can figure out that. But anything short of a dollar figure, at this point, I'm going to turn the mic button off and you're free to go.
Oh, well, gosh, to promote. I'm not a big promoter. I feel like I just do what I love to do, which is right. And if people respond to it, then that is great. So I'm not really out to sell a lot of things. I mean, obviously, I want people to, get these things, and I do workshops, play shops, and I do, I'm out there, writing, and I love it when people respond to that. But, for example, I have a blog on my pamgrout.com website, and it's totally free. I mean, people can subscribe. There's like 600 articles on there talking about these kind of topics, the topics about positivity. And, in fact, I paid to have all ads taken off my website because it's on the WordPress format.
Right.
And they started running these little ads. And I said, I don't want to be selling stuff to people. I want to give this because I believe you can't outgive the universe.
Correct.
I'm a big believer of, the gift economy, even that we're going to give. So I'm not really out to sell a lot of stuff, but I would encourage people, anybody that's interested in this message, to go to my website. It's pamgrout.com. If you know how to spell my name, you'll be able to find me. You can follow me on Facebook if you want. And, again, all these posts, I do a lot of posts about this kind of stuff. It's totally free. You can sign up. You can subscribe. And that's a lot of fun. And then, my books are out there. I'm just about to sign the contract for my 20th book. And it's
good for you.
Miracles. So anyway, I've got 19 that are currently available, and the 20th will come out. Actually, it doesn't come out until January of 2020. But anyway, that'll be my next book. But
wow,
my books are out there, and as I often joke, my sometimes updated website. In fact, I was laughing listening to your, when you did that introduction, like, wow, I need to update that. That's been a long time ago. That was before E Squared. But anyway, but I do update my blog posts. I'm always writing new things, new positive things, about changing your mindset. So that's totally free. So anybody that's interested, just go to my blog, pamgrout.com, and it's all free right there, all kinds of blog posts. And my books are listed. I'm not sure all of them are on there. Again, I may not have updated. Somebody told me the other day that I had never put Think and Grow Rich on there, so I need to put that one on there. And then my book that came out last year was called Art and Soul Reloaded. It's about creativity and spirituality.
All right.
God's the big creator, and we're all made in His image and likeness. So, we too are in on the creation of the universe. We're in on the creation of, the energies that go out there, and again, the upliftment of people. And my whole goal is to, uplift people and to, let everybody realize how much we are all loved and how much we all love each other. Because sometimes we hear a different message or we think a different thing. So.
And see, because I'm sitting here, and I know I was going to shut the microphone, but I had to shut it back on based on what you were saying. in terms of the fact that you want to give it away increases, and you're not giving it away with the intent for you to get back. Because I've had this conversation on the air and with people as well. The whole thing about blessed and being blessed, it's your motive. You can't go into it with the intention of, I'm going to do this to get that. it has to be, I'm giving this freely, and again, whatever comes back to me comes back to me. And like she just said, you can't beat God, you can't beat the universe giving, no matter how. And I tried over the last couple of weeks because my birthday night, one of my other daughters, we went out, and she says, Dad, I'm treating you to dinner. I'm like, oh, wow. Okay. All right. So she paid for dinner because it's my birthday. So now I went out to lunch with a friend of mine, and I paid for his lunch. Then now I go out to lunch with another friend. He pays for my lunch. And then I went out last night to dinner with another friend. I paid for his dinner. And it was like, okay, every time I try to pay, somebody pays for mine. It goes full circle. You can't beat.
Yeah, when you realize how blessed that you are, I mean, that's like if anybody could just get that we are so blessed, and then all we have to do is sit back and allow those blessings to come. And we block it, with our negative thoughts and with our belief in all these problems that we have to fix. But yeah, you really can, if you really trust that you are loved and that the universe wants to bless you, then you don't have to worry about trying to sell people things, That's like being in a state of wanting or being in a state of not trusting, that you're loved. Because once you get it that you're loved, it's like, what more do you need to do? Just give of your gifts. Give of your gifts. We all have gifts. We all have blessings that we're meant to give to other people. And then, again, it's a big circle. It comes back.
It really does. And I'm extending the interview now because, see, again, that's why I told you it's very conversational. But even we were talking receptivity, and this is hard for a lot of people. And I had to work on this a little bit myself to a degree. When people are trying to give you something, allow them to give it to you.
Exactly. Don't block your good, as I always say.
Right. But for a lot of people, it's hard. Like I'll give. I have no problem giving. I have a hard time receiving. And you got to be able to do both.
Right, exactly. And that those are blessings. People want to bless you. God wants to bless you. The universe wants to bless you. And so let it come. You're giving them a gift by letting them bless you, because really that's what I think our deepest longing is to give and to bless.
Right.
And so when we won't let people, buy us dinner or whatever, then we're blocking their good, or we're blocking joy. So it's important, for all of us to just get that, how much we're loved and how much we all love each other. So anyway, well, I guess it's past 8 o'clock.
No, it is. But again, I thank you so much for joining me this morning. I know like 7 o'clock your time. And I thank you for rising early with me. I don't know if some of my guests say, well, I'm an early riser anyway, so it's really, but I still thank folks because I know it's early. This is an early morning live show. I do record it, and I will get the link to you, and you feel free to share it however you'd like. I also I archive it on my YouTube channel, so folks who didn't rise early can catch the show whenever it's put up, it's posted in YouTube. They can get it there. But like I said, when I send the MP3 link to you, you can post that or share that however you'd like as well. And I am ever so grateful because I love the topic. Like I said, E Square, I love the book. I'm going to check out a few more other books. Like you said, usually when somebody read one, they want to check out more. So
yeah. Well, thanks a lot, Mark. It's been great. Joy talking to you this morning.
Same here. Well, I tell you what, have a wonderfully blessed life. I won't even say week, month, day. Just continue to have a wonderfully blessed life.
Thank you, and you too.
Thank you. Take care now.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.